Okay,
And
and the slide's good?
oh, good.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Um, my name is Anitra, and I'm an assistant dean at the Cornell Graduate School, which is located in Ithaca, New York. Thank you for having me today. I love doing this. I do this every year, and I always look forward to it. So, I hope that you're in good hands with me today. We'll be talking about how to build your personal brand. And we're doing that specifically in relation to using this as a way to help you get into graduate school. And we're not talking about different types of programs specifically. We're just talking about the things that you can do to sort of promote yourself and set yourself apart from other your peers who are also applying at the same time. So I do have to say that I'm going to turn my video off because my internet connection is pretty shaky right now. And so I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring you, but I probably um, should turn it off just so I can present the information that I really want to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we will jump right in because I do have a lot to share. And hopefully this advances. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll try again. Right, this might happen today. Try. Um, Go. Okay, you can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I want to start out by saying that when you apply to graduate school, when you're applying to different graduate programs, this is about you. It's not about everybody else. So I always like to start out by reiterating that applying to graduate school is not a team sport. We want to know when we're reviewing your applications, we want to know what you have done, what skills you have. It doesn't help us to know what everybody else has done. So I just like to start out with that caveat so you know that everything you do going forward really is about you. We're not cultured to be really showcasing ourselves. We're supposed to be inclusive. We're supposed to be collaborative, and all of those things are important. And you do want to talk about those things, but you need to showcase your strengths and your abilities when you're applying for graduate school. And you do have to remember that other people are really good at doing it. So you have to get good at it too. Okay. So, what are we talking about when we discuss branding? A lot of times we're thinking about companies, we think about, Pepsi and Coke and McDonald's and Netflix, and that's not what we're talking about here. You need to kind of look at yourself as a brand as well. We also don't typically do that. But each one of us is our own unique brand. And so, what we're talking about here is going through the steps to create and maintain your identity that is going to be forward facing. So this lends itself to kind of navigating and making the decisions as to what you want to put out there that will reflect your image, sort of showcase the reputation that you want to have, and what kind of identity you want to showcase for the audience you choose. And we'll talk about audience in just a minute. But the things that really should be reflected in your personal branding are your values. So, what are the principles that guide you day to day and guide you in making the decisions that you make? What expertise do you bring to the table? What makes you different than other people? What have you done? What skills do you have? And then ultimately, what do you want to be known for? That kind of lends itself to you starting to think about what your goals are, why does you having a personal brand matter? It matters in graduate education and applying to graduate school because this is what the faculty who are reviewing your applications and interviewing you for evaluating you for admission, this is what they're going to see. And you get to decide, you get to curate your brand the way that you want to so that it reflects your personal identity. So, it's a competitive world. So really what you're doing here is you're just trying to differentiate yourself from, in this case, from the other people who are applying at the same time. And it can impact how you're perceived by faculty, prospective employers, maybe later on after graduate school, or internships or co-ops or things like that, fellowship directors, and certainly your peers and your colleagues. So it's not something that we really think about ourselves as a brand. But I really want to encourage everybody on here, including the staff, to start thinking about yourselves as a personal brand. And in line with that, I have to do it too. It's just not something that we've always done. Some people are really good at it, but it takes work. It's not necessarily easy because it's something that requires a lot of self-reflection and self-assessment, because you have to decide what you want to put out there, how much you want to put out there, and what types of things. So here, what you're really trying to do when you're doing your initial self-assessment, first of all, figure out who your audience is and you're catering to them. So in this case, we'll say it's, prospective faculty who you'd want to work with at different graduate programs. So you're trying to identify your strengths, your values, and what sets you apart from others. Then you've already defined your audience. So you have to kind of figure out what your messaging is going to be, because you're going to start creating content and you need to post regularly. This is an active process. So this should not be static. You need to, I don't just say develop your messaging. I say maintain here. I put that in for a very specific reason because things get stale and that's not attractive. When you look at content that's old, it's not fresh, it's not being updated, it sends a message. So this is a process that you have to actively participate in and pay attention to. So I've reiterated what you're kind of showcasing here. And then I think the important components now is you'll be creating your brand in terms of applying to graduate programs through your application essays, through your CV or your resume, and also through your letters of recommendation and the people who you have supporting you in writing those letters. They're actually very important. I don't touch on that a whole lot here, but they are bolstering your brand too. And so the people you choose are actually supporting your personal brand in that way. But having an online presence is super helpful. And I would say before you apply, during the application process, not so much through the admissions process right now, because on the whole, we're really kind of staying away from when we get applications going online and searching people. What we're doing is we're evaluating applicants based on the application package they put forth to us for review. And we don't look on external platforms and things like that. We're not doing that right now. We certainly used to do it sometimes, but we don't do it now. But where it can help you is like today, it can help you network, it can help you find prospective faculty and researchers, network with current graduate students. All of that kind of thing can happen online while you're investigating where to apply, while you're figuring out where to enroll if you've been admitted. And a very important part of this process is engagement. So this doesn't, you can have just, posting things on LinkedIn and on different social media platforms. But if you're not engaging with people and you're not responding to people who are messaging you, you're really missing out. So these are sort of the main things. So it is super important that across all of the platforms you're on, that you pay attention um, in being concise. So use similar visual uh, uh, facets. So similar photos, similar images, similar fonts and texts and things like that. So consistency and having a uniform, unified branding message across different platforms really makes you look put together and really polished, professional. And honestly, what it says is that you're willing to put in effort, you're willing to do the work, and it really speaks volumes. And ultimately there's something about you trust a brand more if there is consistency. So the other thing that I would touch on here is about your tone, like the overall tone. So I would encourage you to be super authentic. So if you're kind of a more straight to the point kind of person and you just like stick to the facts, be yourself. Let yourself shine here. If you're really super open and laid back and friendly and, super chill, let that come through. Authenticity speaks volumes when you're applying to graduate school and just in life in general. I mean, you don't want to be around people who are not authentic. And it comes across in your brand messaging. People know if you're being fake. They can tell, especially when they meet you and you don't align with what you're putting out there. That's always really odd when you're looking at someone on paper or on their social media and then you meet them and they're so drastically different. That doesn't send a great message. So just be really authentic. And I give a whole workshop just on being authentic in your grad school applications. It's really, really, really important. And I don't think people realize how far that can take you. So we talked about doing this self-reflection. This is, I would say, um, probably the hardest part because you have to do it before you do anything else. In order to be deliberate, to be intentional about what you're putting out there, as I said, it takes work. So you want to figure out um, what your core message is going to be. And I think with applying to graduate school, it's that you are super prepared. There are certain things that motivate you. You've undertaken all sorts of opportunities that have come your way. Some you've gone out of your way to get. Those are the kinds of things that you really want to put forth, out in the universe here in your brand when it comes to applying to graduate school. So if I'm looking at you, if I were a faculty member who was looking to admit you, those are the things that I want to see. How do you stand out from other people? What on the job training? Two people can get in, they can have had every single perfect experience. You get there and you have to learn on the job. So it doesn't really, if you have a basic perfunctory understanding of the science or the field that you're in, you've done work to prepare you for the program that you're applying to, that you're getting into, or you're going to, that's that's what you need. You will learn everything else once you're there. And the other thing I will say is research projects change all the time. Very often you'll come in thinking you're going to do one thing, and that changes for a variety of reasons. A lot of times, the research goes in a different direction, or the faculty member gets a new grant, or your ideas expand once you're there. You don't even know what is available until you get to the school where you enroll. So it's also important for you to do, I think, some soul searching about why you want to go to graduate school. And you're going to put all of this in your, what we call at Cornell, the academic statement of purpose. Some places call it a personal statement. It's a little bit of a misnomer because we also have a personal statement, but that's more about you as a human being, not so much your academics. So these things here, you're doing this reflection so you can craft a really, really good academic essay to get you into graduate school. And it really is that essay that is the primary piece of your graduate school application. You should always remember who is reading this essay. I know that we're not doing an application workshop today. We're talking about personal branding. But writing your academic essay for graduate school and your personal essay, but primarily your academic essay, that's the way you're showing your brand to the faculty who will be reviewing it. So it's important for you to remember who your audience is in this time here, which is going to be faculty. Faculty are the ones who make admissions decisions at the graduate level. Sometimes it's not super, super common. We're seeing it a little bit more, but sometimes they will have current graduate students, usually, students who've been in the program for a couple of years or more, maybe even more like senior graduate students. Sit on the admissions committee as well. So don't discount your interactions with current graduate students, regardless of whether they sit on an admissions committee or not. So you always want to lead with the research fit and your preparedness in your essays. That's the most important thing. So, you want to frame this in terms of accomplishments, not just tasks. What did you learn? What did you accomplish? And I will say, we really like to see, and I'm not a faculty member, so I don't evaluate students for admission, but I do evaluate applicants for fellowships. And so one thing that faculty who are doing admissions and us who review fellowship applications and some other things, one thing we really like to see, and this wasn't always the case, but it's become pretty prevalent, is that we like to see if you have overcome challenges in your academic and, like sometimes in your personal life too, because it shows that you can handle the rigor that graduate school takes. And particularly if you're interested in doing a PhD, those programs can take upwards of 5, 6 years, sometimes longer. And you really have to be resilient. And so I know that, resiliency and overcoming obstacles are sort of like buzzwords right now, but they are that for a reason. And it really says a lot about you if you can overcome a challenge, sort of come out ahead on the other side, reflect back and say, you know what? That helped make me who I am, or I learned a lot from that experience. And it just says a lot. And another thing that is super important is, just in line with authenticity, is showing your passion for the discipline that you're in, because that is going to sustain you through your time in graduate school. If you don't really enjoy and hopefully love what you are pursuing academically, I would challenge you to really think about why you're pursuing that. You should be doing things that are enjoyable in terms of career and in terms of your academic pursuits. Of course, everything in life isn't fun. We always have to go through things that aren't so great. But when it comes to choosing your career path or choosing what degree program you go into, you should pick something that you really enjoy. And it's also important. So we're talking about the essay here, but you also want to showcase your accomplishments and these types of things in your online branding too. So they go hand in hand. So I have two slides. This is being recorded, so you'll have this. So I won't go through this in detail, but I kind of summarize this. I boil this down into what you need to put in your essays. And on the next slide, I talk about like specific topics. I have a whole presentation just on writing this essay that's an hour long. So I pulled out a couple of things that I thought were most relevant just to put in so you know what types of things you're looking at. I also have a handout that has like the different sections for your academic statement of purpose. One thing you do need to keep in mind is that each school can write their own prompt. So you have to make sure that you are following what they're asking you to write about. But this is the crux of it. They want to know what motivates you, what makes you tick, that you love this work, and that you're prepared. That's basically what they're looking for in reading between the lines. So you want to tell them why you are pursuing graduate study. You want to share with them what your academic interests are, of course. And keep in mind that you're not held to that. It's like, I don't know if any of you have ever applied for the NSF GRFP, or if you will, you write a research proposal before you're even in graduate school. And you don't have to do that project specifically. Like I said, you won't even know what's available to you truly until you get to the institution you're enrolled in, the program. So then you'll talk about all of the things that you've done that have prepared you for this and the skills that you've learned. And one thing that is an absolute deal breaker is you have to do your homework on the program you are applying to. It is an application killer if you do not write um, a customized application to each program you're applying to. Now, I'm not saying that if you're applying to 7 programs, you have to write 7 unique essays, um, whole essays, but you do have to cater those essays to the programs you are applying to. So typically you'll be naming faculty who you're interested in, and maybe some unique features of the program, the research that they do. So the research at Cornell is very different than the research at UCF, and so on and so forth. We each have our own unique flavor. And what this does is it shows them that you're paying attention. You're not just applying to a bunch of programs that you really don't care about and you're just hoping to get in, that you have done your homework on each of these schools and you've chosen them for very specific reasons. And ultimately, the reason should be because of the work that the faculty are doing. So that faculty fit always rises to the top. That's why you're applying to those programs. And then you may want to talk about why this degree is important for you in terms of your future, your professional goals. And we can talk about that a little bit further, but that's not really the primary focus of the essay. But sometimes people do like to, sometimes they actually will ask you to sort of define what you think you might want to do in the future. And again, that changes a lot. We have a lot of students who come in thinking, oh, they know they want to be faculty. And then they decide to maybe go in industry, or they come in thinking, I don't think I want to be faculty. And they serve as a teaching assistant or, a mentor or something like that and love it. And it is really something that becomes important to them. And they decide they do want to go the academic route. As I mentioned, this isn't just about your grad school application. You also could think about building an online presence. Probably all of you have some form of an online presence on social media. It's obviously, prolific. But I think leveraging platforms, particularly like LinkedIn, is a really big one for the academy. But Insta and X and some of the other platforms, even TikTok, people are like our faculty are posting on TikTok and talking about what they like to see in applications. And so you decide what works best for you. But I do think it's helpful to have an updated LinkedIn profile. And it's a really easy way to find other researchers and current graduate students. We use it a lot to find alumni speakers to come back and talk at Cornell. And I know some of our graduate students, when they're kind of on the job market, they're looking to see if there are any Cornell alums at certain companies and things like that. So we use it a lot for a lot of different things, but it's nice to have sort of that snapshot of what you've done. Um, and it helps optimize your branding and your profile. And it can get you out there in kind of like the arenas that you want to be in. You can also find some really good like publications and talks that people have done there. Um, so with your content creation, that's what this is really all about. You want to be sharing stories that reflect who you are and some of the cool things that you've done. You can do like blogs and blogs. Um, and it just kind of depends on what you're most comfortable with. We are seeing a lot of people who create personal websites. That's a whole separate thing that you have to maintain. So it just depends on kind of, what direction you want to head in. You could just have a simple LinkedIn profile that has all of your work on there, and use that for your networking. But as I mentioned in the beginning, you have to be active. Like you have to do things. This isn't just like a static, you need to maintain it, you need to pay attention to it. And You have to evolve over time. So you stay relevant and you stay current. So engaging with, I just say the community. But here, I'm really talking about more like academics. So you would be engaging with faculty, both at your institution and at prospective institutions. I will say that I am a huge advocate for reaching out to prospective faculty who are in the programs or in your field, but in the programs that you are considering applying to. That's a really big part of the process. And I actually recommend that you try, if you find faculty who are interesting to you, reach out, try to figure out who their grad students are. Reach out to them first and see if you can strike up a conversation with some of their grad students because they offer such valuable insights. And a lot of times, faculty are really busy. They get a lot of emails. Grad students a lot of times will write you back. They will engage with you. They'll tell you about their work. And, that kind of goes back to that piece about having passion for your discipline. Think about when you talk to faculty about their work. Hopefully you have done that. But if you haven't, I encourage you to put, it can be a little intimidating, especially at a humongous school like UCF, where you have so many students and you might be just one in a huge class. That's how it is at Cornell. We don't have nearly as many students as you do, um, but you might not really stand out in the class, but that doesn't mean that you can't go talk to them. But what happens is you talk to a faculty member, you ask them a question about their research, and they just go off. They love it so much most of the time that they will actually drive that conversation. And that's really cool. And that's how it should be for you eventually too. That's what I want for you. And so that kind of goes to that passion piece. But current students, they're kind of in the thick of it. But usually they really enjoy what they're doing. At least the discipline. The work might be a little tedious, it might be hard, and research doesn't is very rarely is it just straightforward and goes exactly as planned. That's pretty unusual. So it's not easy. But they usually enjoy the realm that they're in. You should be putting yourself out there and participating in events, going to talks. Those all help you build your brand because people see you there, you network with them, then they look you up and they see your profiles, they see your social media, all of those kinds of things. And if you can get to conferences where you present your work, or even just go as an attendee just to see what they're like, to hear from good speakers, things like that. Try to do that. The drawback is they cost money, so you won't always be able to do that. But if you can, you should. And then, of course, just engaging in simple discussions. I always say, you never know who you're going to meet in an elevator or sitting on an airplane. You never know. You can meet some really amazing people just in an elevator or in a hallway. But you won't do that if you don't put yourself out there. And collaborating on projects and things like that is always a really good way to get to know people. And so, you're basically kind of developing your portfolio online and in writing and in person. So those are sort of like the three facets, I guess. And in this context, also for your graduate school application. So I think I wanted to leave a little bit of time to take questions, and we can talk about other things besides your personal brand. We can talk about the grad school application itself. We can talk about any of that. Um, but I'll just sort of summarize the things that I think are the most important here, the things that really are the takeaways. So showing your passion and being authentic and always staying true to yourself and to your personal values, those things really shine when you start developing your personal brand, what you want this to look like, what types of things you want to post, what your content is going to be like, sort of the feel that it has. You need to start getting comfortable sharing the things that you have accomplished. And you have to do that because other people are really good at it. And you have to get good at it too, if you're not already good at it. And we grow up being told like not to brag, you shouldn't be bragging about yourself. You're not bragging if it's true and if it's accurate and authentic. And when you are applying to graduate school, you have to share you should never allow an admissions committee to make up your narrative. You have to tell them what you've done. And also, by the way, if you have any like blemishes on your transcript, like you had a bad start or you had a bad class or you had a bad semester, you should address that. You shouldn't just act like it didn't happen and hope they won't see it. They will see it. And that just goes back to not letting them make up a narrative about what could have possibly happened. It's so much better if you just write a couple of sentences explaining what happened, turn it around, how you came out on the other side of it, what you learned from it, etc. And then it's done. It's done. And usually those things don't affect the overall assessment of your application. But if you don't tell them, then who knows what they could be thinking. So I also encourage you to be like a sponge and just soak up opportunities. Be a yes person, not a no person. And it's really easy when you're so busy and you're tired and you're overloaded to say no to things. And of course, be strategic about it, but try to embrace opportunities that come in your path. You can learn so many interesting things. And sometimes, I think things happen for a reason. And, sometimes those opportunities are coming your way because they're things that you deserve. There's lessons for you to learn or whatever. So, be a sponge and try to soak up some of those things. It's really important too that you're not, I know that like applying to graduate school is not a team sport, but that doesn't mean that you can't and shouldn't be reaching out to other people for advice, for mentorship. You can find mentors in like the strangest places. They're not always your professors or staff. Like you just never know who could serve as an informal mentor to you. And some of the best mentors are people who you just kind of meet at random. But a lot of people in your life can probably give you really good advice because they know you or they're coming from a certain background, they've had different experiences, and allowing them to help you is a really important part of the process. And then, of course, with faculty, they'll be writing letters for you. So if you can get to know them and put yourself out there and really try to get to know them, they'll write better letters for you. Um, and getting feedback. How can you improve? Those types of things go a long way. So yes, applying to graduate school is not a team sport, but getting feedback and continuing to grow as a person, you can really do a lot in terms of um, the way that you work with people, the way that you handle different situations by getting feedback on the way that you operate. Um, and faculty can help you figure out what schools to apply to also. Because they typically know what research is being done in their discipline. So they can say, oh, hey, I think Cornell is a really good fit for you. You should consider applying there. And then you contact me and then I help you if Cornell is a good choice. So as I keep kind of harping on, this is an ongoing process. It does take effort, it takes time, and you have to be authentic. I don't think it's really ever too late to start building your brand. This is really making me think about things that I need to do too. I think it's really important to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. So, I'm starting to think about how I might want to jiff up my LinkedIn profile and do some other things for our office and things like that. So it's not really just about graduate school, but it's also about promoting yourself and your professional life too. Um, and then it's just about making you stand out, but you get to narrate it. You get to decide. You get to curate this experience and the way that you want to be portrayed. And it can really, if you do it right, people will really have a lot of trust in you, and they'll want to work with you and they'll want to collaborate with you. And I don't know, when I look at people who have really good brands, like I want to buy their stuff, I want to meet them, I want to talk to them. And so, it can kind of go a long way in a bunch of different ways. But that's sort of the high level overview to get you started on building a personal brand. I'm really happy to talk about, if there are any questions, I'm so happy to talk about anything grad school related, grad application related, anything like that. So I will stop my share. And it seemed like I wasn't super glitchy, I don't think. So I'll turn my video back on and we have like 15 minutes. So if anybody has questions, I'd be really happy to talk to you about any grad school stuff.
And if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, you can go ahead and put it in the chat as well.
How about you tell me like put in the chat like what year are you? Are you are you all in your undergrad? Is everybody undergrads? Is anybody applying to grad? Did anybody apply to grad school this year?
So we have a senior in the chat saying
Okay.
yes. Third year
So
undergrad.
third year, perfect. Okay, that's good. Oh, so some of you have applied and you're just waiting right now. It's like the waiting game. Oh, it's a little hard because everybody has their own timeline. We have like 100 different majors and graduate majors at Cornell, and they all pick their own deadline to submit applications, and then like some of them review the applications really early, others take their time. Um, and so you just never really know.
We do have some
Ah,
questions. Working on essays, needing tips on essays.
so I
And
do see, okay, yep. And I'll address Christelle's message first. So it depends on where you are, what stage you're at, but your GPA is not the most important piece of the application. It's really about the work that you've done. So I don't know what field you're in. And, I don't know if you're in a STEM field where you can do lab work or things like that, but it's basically about continuing to get as much experience as you can. So it's really not about the GPA. It's more about the experience. And so that's why I harp on the essay so much because that's where you're going to be outlining the work that you've done. And that's what makes you competitive. It's not how well you did in classes. And again, if there was a period of time where you didn't do well and like the trajectory, has improved, then you should be fine. And if anybody on here wants me to look at transcripts and things like that, I'm always happy to do that and to give you I have literally reviewed tens of thousands of grad school applications. So I I can give you pretty solid advice when it comes to GPAs and coursework, but it does matter that you take the right courses too in your major. You want to make sure that you're prepared in terms of coursework. Um, and I would say, typically if you're not doing well in your major courses and um it's not like you had something happen, that kind of derailed you for a semester, you should consider what your major is. Like, is that something that you really want to pursue in graduate school? Maybe you want to go down a different academic direction. But the bottom line is if your GPA is a little bit lower, and, a lot of times people will say that to me, and their GPA isn't actually as bad as they think it is. So I would also encourage you to put that into perspective too. But if it's not something that you can like explain away in your essay, then just keep getting more experience. And if it really isn't that great, you can always take a gap year and work in your field and then apply to graduate school the next year. That helps a lot. And I do see students go and get master's degrees if they really want a PhD. They'll go and get a master's degree first to try to bolster their PhD application. That's perfectly fine. And it would help. But what I will say is most masters do not come with any funding. And so that's a pretty big deal. If you could work in the industry that you're in and get that kind of experience to then be able to write about that in your essay a year from now, do that and not incur all that debt. Actually make money while you're doing it. So that's kind of a personal
I feel that I'm gonna do voice because if I write I can write the same speed that I think.
yeah.
But I do appreciate that information because I was in UCF in 2017 and I have a pretty decent gap of a lot of things going on. And now I went back and I just feel that, well, I'm about to turn 30. So I feel like my mindset of like my, freshman year and sophomore year was that if I don't do 3.0 5 or more, I'm screwed. Like I'm not gonna get anywhere.
Okay.
But now with you telling me that, that helps me a lot because of course I do have now, I'm in biomedical sciences. I
Uh-huh.
do have clinical experience. I do have live experience. I do have like I've been supervisor. I've been all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
in and out of like the field. So I'm just kind of, this is
Yeah.
me in my first semester back, kind of finishing my bachelor's and trying to gain
Okay.
all
That
of
was going to
that
be my
confidence
question.
back.
Okay. All right.
So, and now I have
How much
like,
more
I'm
do you
now
have?
I'm a mom, I'm a household, like I have all these things going on that I just
Yeah.
like am convincing myself that I still have a chance to get to grad school.
Oh, you have a huge chance. You have a huge chance. How much more do you have? How much more do you have before you get your bachelor's?
I do have around a year-ish
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
told my advisor I can't, I can't charge myself too much
Yeah.
in my semesters.
Yeah.
Technically, I really don't have a lot of classes left. It's just like I have the hard science classes left, like all of the
Yeah.
general. So like now I do have to either power up or just keep spreading them out in a way that I can pass them.
Yeah, and I think it's important for you to take everything kind of in stride here. So, I mean, you just listed like five things that make you so unique and so qualified for applying to graduate programs in a year or two.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I mean, definitely don't sell yourself short. And I work with lots of McNair scholars. I work with lots of students, from various backgrounds, and imposter syndrome is so real. Like we actually don't call it imposter syndrome at Cornell. We call it imposter phenomenon because it's not a disease. It's
Yeah.
real. I mean, not that
Oh
disease
yeah.
is not real, but like it just gives this connotation that there's like something wrong with you when you
Yep.
call it a syndrome. So there's a woman who I collaborate with at Cornell who has actually kind of coined that phrase imposter phenomenon. So we use that a lot. And I like the way that she explains it. But so for anybody else out there, don't sell yourself short. We do it all the time. We're constantly negatively comparing ourselves to other people and where we think we should be. And, people are really good at making themselves look like they have it all together. And a lot of times they don't, and I don't know. It's really easy to say like I should have this GPA, and I don't know. I mean, most of our students coming in do not have 4.0s. They don't have 3.5s. Like, we have GPAs all over the board, getting into PhD programs at Cornell, and it's not about that. It's about the work you've done and that you are genuinely interested in this field and you know what you're getting into. And so, those are the things that you want to kind of jump off the page when you're writing your essays, because they read so many of them, and try to make them interesting too. Because, you read essay after essay after essay. It's nice to kind of learn a little bit about what makes you tick. And so, like the fact that you took a break and you've gone back to school and you're a mom and all those things. That's so cool, that you're doing this and you're going to complete your degree. That is awesome. And it makes you a non-traditional student. So I would also encourage you when the time comes, to look at institutions that do a really good job of supporting non-traditional students, but students who have families, who have, other considerations than like your typical grad student would, because you'll have some other things going on in your life that you have to worry about, that not everybody does. So just, when you're looking at different grad programs, maybe I think you should do it early when you're considering where to apply, but definitely once you get in, look at those kinds of things and don't take those things for granted. So in terms of the essays, so Jerry said working on my essays, needed tips. What kinds of things are you struggling with? We have about 5 minutes. I can try to figure out, like, if I have some specific tips for areas that you might be struggling with. Like, what about personal essays versus academic essays? That can be kind of tough too. What to put in each one of them, those kinds of things. So, Jerry, if you're still here, if there's any additional info that you kind of want me to focus on, I'll try. Ah, yeah. Well, that's super personal, you know? I mean, I'll give you a, I'll send you a like a brainstorming exercise. But that's basically what you have to do. You really like this is like soul searching, hard. But I would say like why did you go into it in the first place? What attracted you to it in the first place? I mean,
So basically, my dad has always worked in sales, and
uh-huh.
so like I kind of grew up around him, and he bring me to the office a bunch of times. So I'm pretty familiar with, how sales go, and I've
Yeah.
always liked it as a kid. But
Hmm.
as far as like, I know they're looking for like a deeper connection from me in sales, and I don't
Hmm.
really have like a one of those breakthrough stories, My
Yeah.
stories just kind of like I grew up around it.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's enough
It's
or
enough. It's
okay.
definitely enough. But is this what you want to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All
I
right.
love sales.
Oh, okay. What do you love about it?
Um, just the idea of, being able to not necessarily make people buy things, but just wanna help somebody um afford maybe what they want to afford, but they're not so sure of why they want to buy it. So like
Jerry, you hear what you just said?
yes,
That's your ticket right there. That's your ticket.
helping people understand why they
Absolutely.
okay. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So, I said, are you sure you really wanted to? I love sales. Well, you got it. You just
Okay.
have to figure out what are the things you really love about it, helping people, making sure they're buying the products that I don't know what you sell. I don't know what your dad, what industry, but making sure
He's in
that they
car
get
sales.
their, what was it?
He's in car sales.
Okay, so making sure that people have proper transportation and they have access to, I don't know, go to different places. And
Right.
I'm kind of in a rural area, so transportation is a really big deal up here to make
Exactly.
sure that people have access to, to food and things like that. So yeah, just start there. And I
Okay.
think, you might be a little surprised at what you can put down on paper.
If I can add a little bit to that,
Thank you.
if I can, in my case that I've been in the healthcare and like I've questioned a lot if it was what I wanted to do because my mom is a nurse, just try to
Hmm.
explore something else. Kind of like just a little bit. It's not that you're gonna take years in something else. It's just like explore so that things that you
Just to make
normalize
sure.
and things that you normalize because you grew up on that, you will see that it's part of your identity kind of thing.
Hmm.
Because
I
like when
love that.
you are in one environment and you grow up in that environment, you think everything is normalized. Like you normalize everything, but then when you go out of that bubble, it's like, oh wait, I
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
And I
makes
would
Agree.
say two things to you, Jerry. One, you're not your dad. Um, you are your own person and you get to make this life what you want it to be. If sales is your thing, you can sell whatever you want. And what an abundance of skills you have. What a mentor, what a person to just watch and see how like they operated. And I
Yeah.
mean, wow.
Yeah.
So that you don't get in a book. You don't get that in a class. That
That's
is that's truly a great, great, great thing. So
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'll
yeah.
definitely start there.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start. And so you all have my email.
Yeah,
You know how
Anitra,
to find me.
I'm gonna ask that you share it in the chat with them. And for the
Okay,
sake of
yeah, I'll do
everybody's
that.
time, I'm gonna go ahead and post the post-event survey. If you all have the time to go ahead and fill that out, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you really enjoyed our workshop today, I'm also gonna post our link tree so that you can find our resources that are available to you as well. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can reach us at the email that I put in the chat for you all. But thank you all for coming.
Yep.
Thank you, Anitra, for sharing your insights. This was
Yes,
such
thank you for
wonderful.
having me.
I'm
If
so
anybody needs anything, just email me.
yeah. And Anitra is great. We've
Love to
met
work.
previously, and she's wonderful. So feel free to reach out to her. She's lovely.
Yes, please feel free. All right, take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, you all. Thank you for coming.
Bye.